Morning, everybody. My name is Carter. I'm a physical therapist here at Stevens Point Orthopedics, and I'm here with my colleague, Ryan Clapper, who is TPI or Titleist Performance Institute certified and our resident golf expert here. And we're super excited to bring to you today the power of Noraxon myomotion and our golf swing analysis today. And so really, why are we here to do this for you today? And really, why we're here is to try and help bridge the gap between golf performance and Stevens Point Orthopedics physical therapy. And really try to just even the playing field to really give the golfers of our area the best that they can get to help increase their performance and also help them with their pain.
So guys, like Carter had said, I'm Ryan Clapper. I'm TPI certified, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit more later. But Carter referenced bridging this gap. If you think of track athletes, basketball, football, baseball, you have your off-season training. You're always doing something to get better, and it's specific to your sport. That's something that we're starting to offer that we know with the PGA professionals, the LPGA professionals, has really made a difference over the last 10 years now. So what is TPI? It's Titleist Performance Institute. It was started about 20 years ago, and their whole philosophy was educating golfers and industry professionals on the body swing connection. And what they mean by that is everybody has a different swing. There's an infinite number of ways to swing the golf club based on your body and the way that you can move and your physical limitations. And so through that, they've developed this team approach. The golf professionals, fitness and medical professionals, all collaborating and working together. You know, some of the greatest athletes don't just have one trainer. They got a whole team working around them, and that's the approach that we want to take. With TPI, they have 5 different avenues that you can go. They have golf, they have junior development, they have fitness, medical, and power. They also have a level 2 and a level 3 of these, and myself, I've taken golf, fitness, and medical level 2. I'm currently taking their power level 2 right now. And so everything that me and Carter are going to be working on with you guys is never intended to be a swing correction. I'm not your swing coach. I'm not your golf instructor. We may give out exercises and things that look similar, but our intent is very different and related to the body, not necessarily your swing. And with that, each person is going to get back to their most efficiency, and from that we can dive into it with this TPI screen. So what is a TPI screen? It's 16 collective movements that all relate directly towards your golf swing in different movements and range of motions that you need for it. With this, there's interplay of body has a stable mobile segment pattern that alternates. With more proximal and close chain stability, we get distal mobility. That's your speed, that's your power, where those things come into play. If you had somebody who has multiple stable segments in a row that they can't move well, they're going to have a limited range of motion, which leads to that decreased power, injury, faults, and inconsistencies. And vice versa. If you have too much mobility, you're going to kind of be like Gumby. You're going to be a wet noodle out there, and you're not going to be able to control that motion either. And so with this screen, though, we get a fitness handicap. And this is just going to play in and tell us how many limitations that you may have that you're dealing with. Some of the greatest golfers out there have these, but they work around them and they make it efficient for their body.
So how does SPO or Stevens Point Orthopedics physical therapy play a role in this? And really what we know, how many people here today have 1 played golf and 2 have had pain with swinging the golf club before? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There's a lot of people. I mean, the prevalence of pain in the golfer and during the swing is upwards of 40% annually in some research that's been put out there. And really what we know is that human movement, and particularly pertaining to the golf swing, it requires that team approach like Ryan had talked about. And so we feel as doctors of physical therapy that we are a valuable role in this sports medicine team to surround the golfer to really give them the best that they can get. And so really, this is where the Movement Performance Lab and what we have to offer for motion analysis comes into play here. On top of all of the tech that we're going to show you today, everything that we do with the screening and our movement exam is designed to figure out the reasons why you swing the golf club the way you swing the golf club. And really that's through identifying mobility restrictions, weaknesses that you might have, or different inconsistencies or improper movement timing patterning that we might see. And really the ultimate goal is to really increase that efficiency and give you the most efficient swing that you can. But the technology, like we had talked through today, is this Noraxon motion analysis. And what you can see here on the screen is we've got high definition, high speed motion capture videos on top of an avatar that is created to show you, the golfer, how your bones, how your body is moving in real time. And on top of this, Ryan and I both have the real-time range of motion data and the things that we as PTs really nerd out about and we really like to look at and dive in the nitty-gritty details to really tease out exactly why you swing the golf club the way that you do. And now, I had mentioned efficiency before. What does that exactly mean, right? That's the next question here. And this is where the kinematic sequence, this graph here, is going to give us the most information.
So taking a look at this, guys, you're probably thinking, what is this graph showing me? What does it mean? It's pretty simple. So we're starting at address here, the start of the golf swing. This is our backswing, working up to the top of our backswing. The two big things that we're looking at to make sure your golf swing is efficient is our transition sequence. So this is if I have a club right here and I'm at the very top of my swing, the correct order that you guys need to come down, that pelvis is going to go first, followed by the trunk, my lead arm, and then we're maximizing that to the golf club. So the transition from the top down needs to be in order, and then we create this slingshot effect. Each one is going to grab off of the next to maximize that speed. So if I had track athletes running a race and Usain Bolt's out in first there, but I want to catch up to him, I would grab on and slingshot myself past him, and so would lanes 3 and 4. And so that's exactly what this is showing. To get one peak stops, you transfer the energy. We're basically maximizing that speed in your transfer from the ground up.
Exactly, exactly. And the coolest part about this entire thing is through the work that we've done together is that we have the capabilities to bring this to the golfers in Wisconsin and the Midwest. And so what happens when this efficiency is off, right? Everyone, including myself, including Ryan, we have inefficiencies in our kinetic chain. And the things that we found in our clinical practice is the loss of power, decreased distance, swing inconsistencies, and ultimately increased pain and some injury on top of that, which leads you to feeling like this on the golf course. Wham, 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 right? Not what we want.
So how is this going to apply to me? Everybody that would come in, we'd take through this TPI screen, your movement examination, and then we're going to sit down with you and explain, as you'll see coming up, what we mean and where your inconsistencies and inefficiencies are. So enter our subject today, Dr. Joshua Troyer. So Josh has been golfing since he was in high school. He has a history of low back pain. He had some herniated discs, some radicular symptoms growing up. He's about a 15 to 20 handicap kind of guy, so about 100 every round. His common miss is a slice or he pushes it to the right. And so I asked him what are some things that he wants to get better. Everybody wants to hit it further. He wants to hit it straighter, and he wants to get rid of the pain that he has almost every single round that he has when he plays. And so from this, we suspected some things that might happen already from his TPI screen, and that's exactly what we found were some of these similar correlations. So when he has S posture, I mean, he sets up here with excessive low back arch. He's already tightening down that lumbar spine because he doesn't want to move from there to recreate that injury and that feeling that he has. He's got limited total body rotation from his ankles all the way up through his swing, and golf's a rotational sport, so we got some big work to work on. His pelvic control and his decreased glute activation plays into this because your glute's your strongest muscle, and the glute is king in the golf swing. And so from this, then, we got a fitness handicap of 33. It's not the same as his golf handicap of 15 to 20, but it gives us an idea he's got limitations.
Exactly. And the thoroughness of how the system that Ryan and I have kind of came up with is on top of the TPI screen, we have got our thorough movement exam to kind of figure out the whys behind why Josh is swinging this and why he might be having back pain in his daily life. And so these are just a list of things, of key highlights that we found in his movement exam. Overarching theme is that Josh biases, or he likes to move too much in his lower back, and he doesn't move enough in his hips. And that's something that hopefully today we're going to demonstrate to you guys so that you really can see how we can take things from we're just talking to him to, oh, we already know how he's going to swing the golf club, or we've got a pretty good idea. So we'll start getting set up and we'll get after it here, and we can answer any questions right now while we're doing that.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions off the top of their hand right now?
What was the fitness handicap? How's that?
So that fitness handicap, good question, Kevin. He asked what the fitness handicap really means. The fitness handicap is developed from those 16 movement exams that we do for the TPI screen. Each one will kind of give us a number based on that when I put it into the app and the software, telling me how many limitations he has. So the higher the handicap, much like golf, the more physical limitations that you have. The lower the handicap, the more in tune you are with your body. All these limitations could be a tissue dysfunction, a joint mobility restriction, or like body stability control and motor control problems. So his fitness handicap of 33 is, I'll say, a little bit higher than average from some of the people I've seen. I'm seeing them all the way down to 10, but I'll work with golfers who are single digit or scratch golfers. So they're not a direct correlation, but they just let us know we might have some things to work with.
We're just getting things set up here so that we can show the people what we're doing.
So kind of what Josh has on him today, guys, are sensors. And each of these sensors we had referenced are going to create this little avatar. All right, so each one has 3 different sensors in there. They work in all planes of motion. They're going to be able to pick up and really get us to break down from his joints and everything exactly how and where he's moving from. He may look one way physically, or you might think, oh, that's an okay swing that he has going, but when we get to the nitty gritty, I can already hone in on these specific joints that he has limitations with.
Exactly, and really what's the coolest part about this to me in using this every week and every day in clinic is that we're able to use the 3 different sorts of things that you can see on screen here. So we've got the cameras, that's what our eyeballs are telling us, okay? That's what we're seeing with Josh's swing when we watch him swing the golf club. When he sees that, we can point out these different things, but what does that actually mean to him? And what does that mean to us when we're trying to explain that to him? And so that's where this cool avatar at the bottom, if I bring it up, you can see that's following his every movement, okay? He can squat, he can bring his arms up. That thing, you can run, but you can't hide. This thing is gonna see everything that you do. But then, like we had mentioned before, all of the graphs on the left-hand side of the screen here are going to tell Ryan and I the exact sequencing, the exact range of motion that's occurring in real time. And so what we'll have you do today is we're gonna get him swinging, we're gonna look at how he sequences, and then we'll put the puzzle pieces together for people. Before we do that, does anyone else have any other questions, comments so far? If not, we will go for it. And so we're gonna have him swing the driver here today. He came a little bit early, warmed up for us, so he should be ready to rock. Let me just get things put together here. Okay. And I'm ready whenever you are. Absolutely smoked it. Every time. That's right. Piping it down the middle. Okay. So from here, this is where we're going to start breaking things down. And we'll go back to the database and pull that up.
When's the last time you golfed, Josh?
A while ago now.
Have you swung the club
end of the
yet?
year.
6 months, yeah.
End of the year. So we're working some of brushing the dust and cobwebs off of him.
Yep. Okie dokie. Here we go. This is where we start getting into what we're seeing. Okay, so remember we had talked. We're seeing what our eyeballs are seeing, what's going on the camera. We're then going to go to the avatar to see how the bones, how the joints are moving, and then we'll go into the sequencing graph and all of the data. Okay, so we'll start, and we'll have this go pretty slow so that we can see this in real time here. And so right away, what Ryan was talking about with that S posture, we can see where he's at with setup right away, right? So we can see he's kind of got this S looking, you can almost see with the lighting, you can see it almost looks like an S with his shirt. Okay, so that's right away things that we can see that we already saw in the TPI screen. We'll keep playing this through. And so remember, what we had seen right away and what we had talked about is that his hips don't move enough and he moves too much in his low back, right? And so if we get to the top of his backswing, what we like to see is we like to see a pretty good hip turn. okay, at the top of the backswing here, he might be cheating here a little bit and getting movement somewhere else. It might look like he is turning his hips, but I don't think he's turning them quite enough, okay? And so what we can do here is we will go to our handy dandy avatar, and he will show us what's going on. So we'll pull this up. Good. So you can see as he goes from his address to the top of the backswing, I'll have you guys focus on his pelvis right down here, okay? He's going to get some turn, but only to a certain extent. So right there is where his hips stop moving, okay? Notice that if we go back to the video, okay, he is only halfway through his backswing, okay? He has to get motion somewhere else, okay? Where that is, I think we've got a pretty good guess right now based on his history and things that we found. So if we play this through, that little bit of motion right there, where he gets to the top of the backswing, that is all coming from his low back, and that could be a big key indicator of why the back hurts when we swing.
Yeah, and the other thing that you guys can notice here, some of the longest hitters on tour will do this, they pick up that lead foot. They bring their heel up so they can increase their turn, and that's exactly what Josh is doing here. As he gets into the top of his backswing, he has no choice but to pick up that left heel to increase what appears to be pelvic rotation. He is making one compensation on his own without even knowing he's doing it because his hips don't move. And then the other one Carter had pointed out is that low back. Even though he likes to really tighten that low back down, he'll get a little bit more rotation from that and he kind of stands up. And then Carter, if you play this coming down towards his follow through and you watch where his hips go, he early extends. He's standing right into the ball, closing off that space where his hands go. So already because of that, that's creating that push or that's creating that slice. He can't really get his hands around or he can't get his hands through because he stood into it and has no space.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if we think about it, his body is doing what it's been designed to do, and that's to follow the path of least resistance, okay? It would take an incredible amount of energy for Josh to expend during a full round to be absolutely perfect every single time with his golf swing. So his body's going to do what it naturally does. Unfortunately for him, that leads to increased stress throughout the different joints, different muscles throughout his body that are going to ultimately cause him pain over time.
Josh, and if you had to say so everybody could hear, you have back pain every time you golf? Can you point to it? When does it develop in the round?
It's usually towards the end of the round.
Okay.
As the round goes on, it's usually like almost SI joints, like off to both sides of your tailbone.
Okay. So for those of you guys who couldn't hear that, either online or just here, he's got that low back pain, and it develops later on in the round every time, and it's kind of almost SI joint. And so with that excessive lumbar motion, he's creating too much mobility. And oftentimes we have pain where we have too much mobility, but me and Carter know that his low back's not the problem, his hips are the problem. So we get pain that we think is causing our issue, and that's what people tend to focus on. When in reality, there could be something else underlying. Almost 60% of people who have low back pain have an undiagnosed hip problem. And so if we would have diagnosed that hip problem early on from the start with what we can do here, we could have avoided them playing that. And then he just gets tired late in the round. I can tell you probably stands up a little bit more. His swing gets a little shorter and he tries to try harder. He's getting some sway and slide, which is just added pressure on that low back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, we know the what of what's going on, okay? We know he doesn't move enough in his hips and he's moving too much in his low back, okay? Now's the time that we really get to harness and hone in on what the technology has in store for us to really confirm what Ryan and I have been saying since the get-go, okay? We've been saying, okay, he's gonna move too much in his low back, not enough in the hips. We're seeing it on the video. The avatar is showing us it. We've got one more area that's gonna really confirm this so that we know exactly what we can give Josh to specifically address this problem and not paint with such a broad brush when we give him corrective exercise, strengthening, or different cues when he's swinging the golf club, okay? And so we're gonna pull up the kinematic sequence graph here, okay? This is our version of that graph that we demonstrated to you earlier on in our presentation, where Ryan had spoken about the the track race with the various runners, the pelvis, the trunk, the lead arm, and ultimately the shaft. Okay, so we'll get him to pull this across here quick so we can see everything. Okay. And so right away, where are our eyes going right away? What do we want to start looking at? Okay, this to many of you is foreign, and so we need to start at the top of the backswing, okay? And what we can see here is on the picture on the right here, he is at roughly the top of his backswing. And what we look for is a succession of, remember, transferring energy from the ground up in a really efficient way, okay? And so if we look at these different lines that we have here, you can see green, blue, pink, and then that light blue color. Those are occurring in order. So the green is the pelvis, the blue next in line is the trunk, then the lead arm, and then the hands. So he is initiating from the top of his backswing on down in a really good way, okay? So good on you. Kudos, Josh. Everyone give Josh a round of applause. Here we go. Here we go. Clap it up. Clap it up. Yep.
The one thing he could work on again is because that left heel comes up though, on the graph here, his pelvis moves a little bit earlier than what we'd want. So his overall transition sequence is good. The way he gets that transfer of power, awesome. So good job to Josh. It's just a little early. If Carter would back it up a couple frames, you can see where his pelvis, when it crosses this line, is actually turning left. But his hands and his backswing are still going. So he's getting a bigger separation. His pelvis is almost going left as his hands are going right. So he's just a little bit early with that pelvis. And again, it's because he doesn't have that hip rotation and the hip mobility that he lifts that foot up and then he's like, well, I'm going to start bailing early with that pelvis because I know it doesn't work that well.
And that separation right there, demonstrate that again for everyone. When the hands come back and his pelvis goes early, he's likely not getting that motion in his hips. He's getting that in his low back, okay? He's good at decoying it. It looks like it's hip motion, but it's really coming at the low back.
Correct.
And so that looks great, right? The second thing that we're going to start looking at in this graph now is how he gets fastest throughout his body. So how fast do these segments get fast, and in what order do they get fast, okay? And so what we'll look at, it should occur in the same exact order that it started with. So pelvis, trunk, lead arm, and then the club shaft, okay? Now, if we look here, okay, as time goes by from left to right, we'll see the first peak is actually not his pelvis. Pelvis is back here, okay? But it's actually his hands and the club head that are peaking first. Now, Ryan, tell the people why.
So yeah, good point, Carter. Now this first peak, he has two different peaks up here of his hands. The first peak that he's getting is a little bit of a cast, and he's correcting that club face so he can come down and be square through contact. So he's up top and he got so far back, he's got to cast and flip those wrists, and then he's squared it up so he gets that early rotation. Then his lead arm goes, so he moves that lead arm and he's pulling hard on the way down to create power, but he didn't even do his pelvis or his trunk yet. Those come in late, so his sequence almost looks backwards. He does get a late peak of his hands though, right before impact, which is good. He's a good enough athlete to make those adjustments and make those corrections. But we could get rid of his pain and increase that efficiency of his, and he'd be playing longer and he wouldn't have that back pain halfway through or late in his round.
And so next question that people are probably asking, okay, what do we do with this information now, right? Okay, we have all of this at our hands. Like, how are we going to get Josh better? How are we going to get him piping it 320 instead of 270, okay? And with no back pain, right? That's the biggest thing. If we can hit it longer, straighter, and with no pain, everybody wins, okay? And that's where having the movement exam and the TPI screen that we've done prior, we've got some good things that were tests that he may or may not have failed that are going to become his treatment almost right away, okay? And so that's kind of where things would go, and it depends person to person what that's going to be, okay? A lot of things for Josh is going to be learning how to actually access that hip and actually feel what it feels like to use his hips, okay? Right now, he doesn't really have a concept of that, and that's okay. We're getting there, and he's actually been working with Ryan and I on some of this stuff, too.
Yeah, and so going off of his decreased use of his hips, it's not, I would reference earlier, a tissue dysfunction or a joint dysfunction. We can actually get him to do these exercises, which is awesome. So that just means it's a stability, mobility, kind of motor control issue. We've had him doing exercises. We start always laying down. It's going to be easier to teach them how to use the muscles, how to recruit things, how to get these patterns better. And even this morning a little bit before we started everything, I had him trying to load his glute while standing. He has a really hard time conceptualizing that mentally and saying, I can feel my glute working a little bit, but I don't understand how to get there, and his movement's not necessarily clean. So again, I was working with him on exercises or drills, however you want to phrase it, but I'm not giving him a swing lesson. I'm still not teaching anything about his swing today, and everything that we've been working on the last month or so has strictly been a glute activation, using his hip range of motion, and going through things in an actual functional pattern for his swing.
And so this is what we would say is inefficient, right? Okay, as far as sequencing is concerned, and people are probably wondering, well, what does efficient look like? Okay, we showed you the graph before, but we've actually had people that we've hooked up, and Andrew Krugler, who is the head pro at the Stevens Point Country Club, we've had him hooked up to be able to take a peek at his sequencing, and we'll give you a peek at this here today as well. And so I'm going to pull this all the way across so that we can look at his sequencing. And if we look, just like Josh's, his initiation, so how he gets from the top of the backswing and what starts that slingshot effect like Ryan was talking about, looks really, really good. And then we see the transition and the peak velocities are lining up much better in an actual order, right? We can see that, can't we? Yeah? Okay, good. And you can see that last peak is the shaft. That's fairly much later in the sequence than with Josh's. Josh's occurred actually way before the rest of his body started. What this means is that he is actually able to create a strong whip of his low body while his hands are winding up, and at that point he's created enough potential energy in his body to just let the hands work, and the whole body comes around and the body does what it actually is supposed to do and just release energy instead of having to try and muscle it so hard, which is where those swing inconsistencies come in.
Yeah, and Andrew does a really good job. He's a scratch golfer. Like Carter had said, he's the head pro at Stevens Point Country Club in town here, and he's got a really good sequence. Even with Andrew, though, there's things we could improve on. So we have objective numbers if we go to joint angles and stuff, but his transfer of power, they're all pretty symmetrical, and that original graph that I showed you guys was a little jump, a little jump, a little jump, huge jump for the club. So even though he's getting a really good transition sequence, we could still optimize his performance a little bit better. And then with the objective measures, this is something that pre and post test, the Noraxon motion analysis does for us. We don't even have to change anything. We get them hooked back up. And if Carter, if you pull up joint angles a little bit here.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to look at specifically?
Well, let's just go hip rotation here.
Okay. On the right, I'm assuming?
Yep. So if we just look at his hip rotation, on where it peaks, it's going to be negative and positive because it's backswing versus follow through, right? But he gets a pretty good hip rotation there on the top of his backswing. We could probably get him to rotate a little bit more and get a little bit more pelvis. But if you look at his hip and his pelvis together, he does fairly well. He gets stacked, he gets loaded, he's coiling that spring. Now, I'm not saying having left heel up or down is bad. You add another moving part, though. For Josh, who's a 15 to 20 handicap, and picking up that heel, he just added a whole nother moving part, and he created pelvic side bend, where if he would keep it more stable, he doesn't have that inconsistency there. Bubba Watson and some of the greatest guys who can do that understand that and are really good at controlling it. But for your average golfer, it's actually probably making things a little bit harder for them to control and work on their golf swing.
I'm going to just pull up and I'm going to try and compare. We're going to try and compare Josh's to Andrew's on here too.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that will be a...
Questions on what we're looking at and why we're looking at things? Does it kind of make sense? It's a little bit more of a nerdy take on the golf swing, and we're getting really nitty-gritty on certain things. But questions, Shane?
How long does it take? I mean, I know it's going to vary from person to person, but how long does it take from the time you do this to the time you should be seeing improvement on the course?
Okay, good question. So guys, Shane asked, how long will it take if I got Josh in? How long do me and Carter have to work with him to see these improvements on the course? I've had it same day. If you can get somebody who comes in and does these and just get glutes activated for Josh, he could go out and notice a difference. Now, let's say his score might not change, His pain may be better. It'll be a small difference. He can notice same-day differences, though. And I've worked with Josh just a couple times in the last few weeks. It's not golf season in Wisconsin yet right now. I'm hopefully getting out tomorrow, but not everybody's had the chance to get out yet. He hasn't golfed in months. So his body, from sitting, from working, doing his day-to-day tasks, and not doing any rotational sport movements, his swing's obviously not what it'll be mid-season. So over the course of the summer, we're going to see improvements. But if he came and saw us right now and was working steadily a couple times a week on this, he's going to notice a huge difference when courses open up here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm just going to get Andrew to the top of his backswing, and we're going to be able to see the difference right away, okay? So if we get him all the way through, he's starting here. Okay, here we go. So we're going to take a mental picture of what, this is Andrew, the lead golf pro, okay, at Stevens Point Country Club, okay? We're going to take a mental picture of this and compare this to what we see with Josh, okay? So if we're looking here, and this is a comparison, Josh, but don't feel too bad. This guy does this for a living.
And again, their bodies are different, so they won't swing the club the same way, and that's the other thing that we want to educate everybody on. I won't swing the same way Josh does. He's quite a bit taller than me, and he's a little bit leaner than me. You know, or we won't swing the same way that Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka or any of these big-name guys swing now, based on our physical limitations. So I just know my body can't do what Josh can, and even Josh won't do the exact same thing Andrew can, but we can still make them all efficient for their bodies.
Right, exactly. And what we can see here with Josh right away, you can see his backside and with the heel lift as well. He's not sitting down into his hip as much as Andrew was, and that's likely a huge contributing factor to why he's not able to rotate. So he has no access to those muscles like that Ryan and I had seen earlier to even create that rotation, to start that whip and that spring effect through the swing.
And he almost gets to a reverse spine angle here, so he's almost leaning backwards towards the target. He gets up there, he's almost leaning this way with that heel up, so he can really load and feel like he gets back. He also, from a face-on view, he sways into that side more so than rotates, and then as he follows through, there's that big slide. Now my hands are behind, so he's got to try to correct with those to get everything sequenced up right at impact.
You can see that sway.
And you can see he's very vertical as well. He, like I said, he gets tall, he early extends and stands into that ball, which is where his push to the right comes in. The slice will be a little bit more from swing path and stuff, but again, I'm not correcting the swing, and me and Carter don't want to do that. We're working on it from the body standpoint.
So if that's the marker of his hip, we'll watch him play this through. Okay, we'll be able to see that slide for sure. So where it started, and to where his hips come afterwards, okay, straight down. These 2 points, the point from before was much further back, almost midway through. So you can see that's kind of that visual slide that we can see.
Yeah, he creates a lateral movement rather than a rotational movement to feel like he's getting more power. And at the end of the day, it's probably not increasing his power that much.
Right, exactly. Now, Josh, tell everyone your experience with this. First of all, what did you expect coming in? Okay. What did you think going through it, and then what did you gain from it?
So I just kind of expected more of a swing coach kind of experience, like you'd been talking about. I know people won't be able to hear me, but I expected more of a swing coach experience, like you guys were talking about initially, and really it was enlightening to figure out like how my body moved, particularly like the stiffness in my hips. And now that I think about that, I kind of spend most of my days straight up and down, and like my hips don't really move too much, and that's just kind of factor of what I do. But once you kind of pointed that, I was like, man, my hips are pretty stiff. So then after working on it here the last few weeks, certainly even just like swinging a day, it just feels a little more fluid. So I think just in a few more sessions, I bet you I would see some significant improvements.
Yeah, and I think if he really wanted to take the leap, he's got some older clubs. A new club fitting would definitely help his swing. Technology's changed, but also a few lessons. Like I said, that's that team approach that we're trying to build and work on here. Carter and I can only do so much. We understand the golf swing very well, but I'm still not coming out to give him a lesson. But I could tell you if he got in with Andrew and did some lessons, he'd definitely notice an improvement on some of those things as well, a different mindset, different drills, then exercises. They're going to work best together.
Exactly, and then being able to just have that communication between professionals. So Ryan and I, talking with one another, what we're both seeing. So not only do we have two brains and two sets of eyes, but we're able to really bring those two together to really think, okay, what's going on and how do we specifically address it? But then also being able to communicate with golf professionals around the area here and around the Midwest to really say, hey, this is what's going on. This is likely things that you've been working on. This is why he might not be able to do what you're asking him to do. And then that just kind of opens up the realm of possibilities, for sure.
Absolutely. So if we kind of, I'll say, explain the process of coming in to see us, the TPI screen would be set up for a 45-minute appointment. I'd do the full screen with you. I'd probably give you a couple little exercises to work on, but then to get hooked up on the motion analysis software that we have with our Movement Performance Lab, they would go over, they'd see Carter. It'd be a 90-minute session. He'd follow up doing a couple swings. We usually look at like a wedge, a mid-iron, a long iron, and a wood. And then from that, he's going to do a more detailed movement exam, but he already kind of has an insight from what I gave him from the TPI screen. And so then when me and Carter collaborate again with Josh, he was able to really see all of it come together and be full circle. And so then from that, either follow-up sessions once a week, we can give a really big home exercise program to them if they want to follow, if they want to check in with us. And then again, if they partner up doing swing lessons, they go hand in hand. And I want to know what they're working on in the swing lesson. Their head pro wants to know what we're working on as exercises with me. And so that's where we just really integrate this full circle again.
I'm going to open it up for questions one more time, okay? Has anyone got any questions about things that we talked about way back in the beginning, what we've gone through throughout? We've talked about a lot today, okay? Really, I mean, this is the sort of information and technology that is nowhere else specifically, I mean, in the state for sure, Midwest even. This is some high-tech stuff, and not a lot of people have access to this. We feel so fortunate to be able to bring this to everyone that we can to really show them what it can do for them and how they can improve the best that they can. But we want to thank everybody. If there's not any more questions here, we want to thank everyone. We have a question. Here we go.
So I'm not the biggest golfer by any means, but with this equipment and technology, if I were to come in maybe for another movement, can you do things like that? Can you do other movements or motion analysis?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what the Movement Performance Lab is really talking about, and really what it's designed around. Really, we're trying to bring this to anyone. You can, if you're a human, you move, right? Okay, this thing is going to watch you. Okay, we're going to be able to see everything. We have runners, walkers. We've done bike fitting with it. We've done baseball throwing, softball pitching, hitting a baseball. Okay. Everything that doesn't include something underwater, because this is electronic, we can do, okay? And we feel really, really fortunate. We're working diligently on trying to make this as efficient as we possibly can to be able to do that. So, anybody else? If not, I want to thank everyone that tuned in on the live stream, okay? Thanks for stopping by. We want to thank 1000 Lumens for putting the live stream together. Let's give them a round of applause, everybody. That was wonderful. Yeah, if there are any questions after this, okay, we'll leave the live stream open for maybe 5 minutes. Is that okay? We'll leave the live stream open if anyone's got any questions and we can address them. If not, for more information on the Movement Performance Lab, on the golf swing analysis, go to our website at stevenspointorthopedics.com. And if you click on the tab for other services, you'll find the Movement Performance Lab on there. It's a robust web page, okay? It's got frequently asked questions to really go through anything that you could possibly want. If you have questions after you read through all of that, reach out, find us, okay? Find us on Instagram, Facebook, all of the socials, okay? We're happy to help you guys, and we really want to get this out to as many people as we can. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yep.